Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Rwanda insists that it's one of the world's safest countries after UK appeal court judges torpedo a deportation scheme of the British government by saying that the East African nation is not a safe third country for asylum seekers. Also, South Sudan launches a groundbreaking program to enroll around 135,000 kids into school to try to roll back the likely generations of damage caused by education rupture during years of devastating civil war. And Niger's private sector steps up to fertilize failing plans for the Great Green Wall, the ambitious multi-billion-dollar project that was meant to see millions of trees planted across the Sahel in a bid to battle climate change, but that stalled in the face of funding holdups. But first, Kigali's hit back at a ruling by judges in the UK's Court of Appeal that found the country not to be a safe third nation. This undermines a plan by the British government to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda. It insists that it meets UN standards for the treatment of refugees, and the UK has already said that it will be appealing to the Supreme Court. Tackling asylum claims have been a key policy promise of the UK's Conservative government. Clément Di Roma brings us more from the Rwandan capital.
British judges say that Rwanda is not a safe country for asylum seekers. The UK Court of Appeal considers the migrant deal signed a year ago between Rwanda and the UK to be illegal. It's also concluded that there is a real risk that those deported to Rwanda may be sent back to their countries of origin and persecuted. Rwanda authorities have slammed the verdict and say that they are still committed to the controversial partnership. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has already said that his government will appeal. Until then, the deal is on hold. He was supposed to put migrants off the dangerous but daily crossings from France to the UK by undermining the business model of human traffickers. However, not a single migrant has been sent to Rwanda yet, but the scheme has already cost UK taxpayers over 162 million euros. Despite assurances from both the British and Rwandan authorities regarding the monitoring of the well-being of asylum seekers, the Court of Appeal agreed with NGOs and the UN, who emphasized during the hearing that the safety of migrants in Rwanda could not be ensured. Kigali is regularly accused of human rights violation on its territory. Its government has always denied this.
Clément Di Roma there for us. Now, more than $40 million more will be going towards improving access to education to children in South Sudan. It's the world's youngest country, but between 2013 and 2020, a brutal civil war cost at least 400,000 lives and upended millions more. The conflict prevented generations of people from learning, and addressing the fallout from that is an urgent priority. This month, a new drive started to get at least 135,000 more kids into school in a bid to reach young people worst affected by the crisis. The head of the fund, providing some of the $70 million for the program, recently returned from South Sudan and told me some of what she learned about the conflict's impact on schooling there.
South Sudan has gone through decades, of course, of conflict, and the last one, not the least. But also there's been a severe underdevelopment over the decades. So Education Cannot Wait, which is the UN's Global Fund for Education in Emergencies and Protracted Crisis, we have invested in South Sudan since 2019. And I was out there with my team last week to launch a new multi-year resilience program for education for South Sudanese children. There are 2.7 million children out of school. Situation right now is relatively peaceful. The government of the Republic of South Sudan is very collaborative and cooperative, and they really prioritize education for the young generation to build that country, not the least girls' education.
Now, you're not just looking at the immediate learning needs of South Sudan. You said that the work being done today is crucial to sustainable development. So what's the link there?
Well, you see, education is the development sector. You need at least a minimum of 12 years to provide a quality education to a child. So it's why you need to come in during the humanitarian crisis, if not before. You cannot wait until the crisis is over. That's why your education cannot wait. So the development side of it is that we bring humanitarian actors and development actors together. delivering with speed, while at the same time building the capacity and empowering the government and local school administration to also build long-term capacity to take on and continue the education.
Now, South Sudan and many other countries nearby are taking in a lot of people fleeing the war in Sudan. In general, can refugee communities maintain access to education, and what kind of things can organizations like Education Cannot Wait do regionally to help?
Well, right now, the current conflict in Sudan itself is of such magnitude that it does impede the humanitarian operations and make it nearly impossible for development assistance. However, Education Cannot Wait has a $25 million program investment together, of course, with civil society and UN agencies in Sudan, who are trying to find opportunities to still deliver, whether at home or in areas that are considered safe, education for these children. But it is very difficult during an active armed conflict, and as a result, we have seen an influx of refugees from Sudan to the 5 neighboring countries: Egypt, Chad, Central African Republic, Ethiopia and South Sudan.
Yasmin Sharif there speaking to me a little earlier on. Now, Ethiopia's asked to join the BRICS group. It's made up of the top emerging markets and accounts for about 26% of the global economy. The acronym BRICS was coined to describe the rise of Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. Ethiopia is one of Africa's fastest growing economies. South Africa will be holding the next BRICS summit in August. The fallout from the rise of racist rhetoric in Tunisia continues to affect the lives of darker-skinned migrants there. In February, President Kais Saied sparked outrage when he delivered a racially charged speech alleging a migrant takeover. Since then, the backlash against particularly sub-Saharan migrants saw several African countries racing to repatriate their nationals. But some are still trying to make it out.
Around 200 people camped out in the upscale Berge du Lac district of the Tunisian capital. These migrants hope their presence outside the headquarters of the International Organization for Migration will help move things along.
You know, we have been here since February 24. People start living here, and from February to April it was raining. We still sleep here with our tents getting wet. You know, we are just tired of explaining this situation because many journalists come by, we give them the message, and we are not seeing any response for any humanitarian organization.
He hopes to leave Tunisia as soon as possible, and he's far from alone. Faced with rising discrimination, more and more migrants are trying to get out.
I submitted an asylum application to the UN's refugee agency. They didn't provide me with anything, no housing or medical treatment. So far, I've been facing racism. So I've asked for resettlement in a third country.
Racism has been on the rise in Tunisia. In February, President Kais Saied lashed out at what he described as hordes of migrants. He said immigration was a criminal plot designed to change the country's demographics. Since then, reports of racist incidents have increased. Just days ago, people demonstrated against migration in the coastal city of Sfax. Local news outlets frequently report on the phenomenon, like last week when the authorities announced they'd opened a probe after the body of a sub-Saharan migrant was found on a beach near Sfax, bearing traces of extreme violence.
The Great Green Wall project aims to battle climate change by holding back the expansion of the Sahara Desert and planting a wall of trees stretching across the entire Sahel from Djibouti to Senegal. The project was first launched in 2007 and backed by a whopping $17 billion in 2021. But many Sahel countries have since struggled to access the promised funds. Niger, those turned to the private sector to get things moving. Our correspondent reports.
The Great Green Wall has been in the works for over 15 years, but it still struggles to take off. Yet the urgency to turn the Sahel into a greener landscape has never been more critical.
Everyone should be involved in the Great Green Wall initiative. But most importantly, we truly need the help of the private sector for this project.
As public funds from the international community are slow to come through, Niger's private sector has wasted no time diving in. The Great Green Wall not only safeguards the environment, it also tackles rural unemployment. But the companies involved want to see a return on their investment, and they want it fast. What's planted needs to be sold as soon as possible.
Producing cassava flour is a tool in the fight against poverty, famine, and many other challenges plaguing the local community.
As a farmer, do you find this type of operation profitable?
It's highly profitable, very profitable.
Locals are crossing their fingers, hoping that private companies won't back out if some of these ventures fail to make profits. International public funders, who've promised $17 billion to Sahelian countries since 2021 for the Great Green Wall, are frequently criticized. The payment conditions for these funds are said to be too strict.
We currently have 9 national projects valued at $1.1 billion, with 14 to 15% of funds already dispersed.
For now, the French Development Agency reports 20 million hectares of land restored in the Sahel on a substantial $3 billion budget. However, progress remains slow towards the goal of restoring 100 million hectares by 2030.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Till then, take care.